All right, Jaguar fans, you got me. You're going to start making me talk prospects already. I'm at the Senior Bowl, and I'll tell you all about the trenches and everything that I see here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you check them out, whether you listen to them or whether you watch them. Make sure wherever you get them, you make sure you tap in each and every day so you do not miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us here. We appreciate you joining us. And here's what we're going to talk about today since you're here. Ways to do it. There are multiple ways that the Jacksonville Jaguars can take care of a lot of their needs. We'll go over that. I just don't want everybody to get locked in on one thing because every time that happens, you get disappointed. And we just don't need to do that. Senior Bowl stars. Some of them line up at positions of need for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Others may not directly line up, but you can never have too many good players. We'll discuss that. We're going to start the show first talking about building the trenches, building the offensive line. That's where we're going to go. And it's going to tie into a lot of things here that we're going to discuss over the coming weeks and maybe even the coming months. A little bit of backdrop. For 3 years, I sat here at least 3 years and said the offensive line isn't good enough in terms of what the team was expecting and what the fans were expecting based on the presence of Trevor Lawrence and what people anticipated his impact on the game and where he was going to take the Jaguars was going to be. And I know that for a lot of times, most people just thought that after going such a long time without having someone who was considered a generational talent or whatever at quarterback, when the Jaguars finally got him, I think there was this sense of, okay, that's all we needed. That's it. And that's not the case. And having that attitude, and I'm not saying that the team had that attitude, but having that attitude now, when you take a deeper look at it, you realize that no, we shouldn't have been thinking that way. So what it does is just makes you have a little bit more practicality and intelligence when it comes to thinking about how this team should be constructed. Now everybody believes, and I don't know if it took, okay, last year and the year before, they were just talking about guys being healthy. The only, we just got to get them out there. And see, that was a hill that I thought they were crazy for dying on because I didn't think they were talented enough. And I thought that the things that could happen by this offensive line not being well and not being way better than you expect them to be, the things that could happen would eventually show that that's not true, that it's not just a matter of them just being healthy. Contract extension to walk a little, a new contract for Ezra Cleveland, signing Mitch Morse, hanging on to one more year to Brandon Sheriff, who statistically and all of the metrics and all of the things that they use, the analytics say that he's a fine football player. Like, ain't nothing wrong with him. And that's where I take issue with people when they say that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for guys there's nothing wrong with. You're looking for guys that you can identify the things that are right about them and why they're expendable for your football team. I just think it's too important, considering that it has a direct reflection on the things that good football teams do: protect their quarterbacks in critical junctures of the game, be able to run block, not only when they want to, but when they have to, and ultimately the protection of your number one asset for this franchise, which is Trevor Lawrence. So now we get into this phase where the new coach, Liam Coen, that everybody loves everything about, with the exception of the way he says Duval, but we'll fix that. Now we get into a situation where he says the first thing we need to do is fix the offensive line. And this is why the clean sweep part of this was so important for me, because he doesn't have to convince Trent Baalke of that. And Trent Baalke is the one that built the offensive line before. He doesn't have to worry about, okay, this is where we are. I know how we got here. So how do we take this and go further? No, his job is to say, I know what it needs to look like. It don't look like that right now. So whatever we have to do to make sure we fix it, that's what we're going to do. And that's what a clean, fresh start means. Does he have to get around the contract or walk a little? Yeah, he does. I think he could probably, maybe a new coach can extract something from him. But if not, there's a way that you can make up for the fact that if Walker Little doesn't work out and he is untradeable, there's a way that you can work around the fact that he'll be maybe one of the most expensive swing tackles in the league. And the way that is to find a younger player or draft a younger player who you don't have to pay as much, whose money is slotted, and make him the starter, and he beats out Walker Little. So that's one way to improve it. Ain't nobody worried about the fact that that dude's going to probably be pissed that Walker Little makes more than him because he's a rookie. His money's slotted. There ain't nothing y'all can do about it, even if you wanted to. I don't think I'm talking about using a first-round pick on someone, though. That's not what I mean. So what happens is, and if you see the thumbnail anywhere where I'm promoting the show, you see Trey Smith. Trey Smith is a great player, the right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs. Has a good story, overcame a lot, knows how to win, all of that stuff. And is probably a part of the number one interior trio in the league. I think he's going to be worth the $100 and some odd million that somebody decides to give him. That's not the whole story. One, what if he chooses somewhere else to go? The Jaguars have to have that other thing to do. There are teams that can outbid them. There's a team that has the worst offensive line in the league up in Boston, and they just happen to have a coach that loves physicality, and they just happen to have well over $100 million in salary cap, so they can easily outbid anybody. So there has to be a contingency plan. And I know what Jaguar fans do because I'm so used to it. They lock their eyes in on one person, and they say, that's it. The fact that I have lamented that this is the number one priority year after year after year, and I am now telling people, calm down, wait a minute, hold on. You don't have to reset the market. You don't have to have the highest paid interior lineman in the league for this to work. Everybody's pushing back on me saying, but we've already gone cheap and we've already done this. So this isn't a case where it's either do nothing or jump out the window doing everything. That's not how this works. And the people that do this for a living know that because, quite frankly, they don't have the number one pick and Trey Smith is sitting there. This is a situation where they got to sell him on coming here. This is a situation where he's going to have options. And this is a situation where they cannot put all of their eggs in one basket. So I'm not going to allow this podcast to put all of our eggs in one basket. Big Trey Smith fan. I've been saying it for a long time. And I was more in tune with them going out and getting a Trey Smith or a Tevin Jenkins because of Trent Baalke, because he has not shown the propensity to go out and actually scout this position and draft players. So we have to do the thing that's easiest, right? We got to put training wheels. We had to put training wheels on him. You know, and even with training wheels, he was riding a tricycle, and we had to make sure he had on a helmet too, because he was going to make a fatal mistake if we just depend on him scouting and building it on his own. So you have to overspend. You have to do the obvious. That's not the case here. All right. I'm going to talk about ways to do it. But prior to that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my first full day experience here at the Reese's Senior Bowl. Shout out to Jim Nagy and the crew also for always treating the media really, really well up here. And shout out to all my locked on people that I know and I run into. There's a couple of y'all missing. I haven't seen Cal Crabs yet, but I did. Jarvis up in Atlanta, Jarvis Jones, Aaron Freeman, Lauren Scott, all of us, we've been hanging out. I passed my man from the Colts, Hicks, a couple of times. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you about some guys from the Senior Bowl, not just offensive linemen. I'm going to start there at the top of the segment, though. That's where I'm going to start. It's not where I'm going to end up. We'll see you in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. That's right, man. Prize Picks is the absolute truth. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make that game even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less. That's right, more or less on at least two players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where one of the starting quarterbacks only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and guess what? Cha-ching, you are cashing out. All right, so here's what we're doing this week. I'm looking at the board and I'm selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards in the big game and more for quarterbacks passing yards. What I love most are the fast and safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab to tell any of the Super Bowl Sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tell a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, live from Mobile here recording. Well, live for me. It ain't going to be live for y'all when y'all see it because I was scared I might make a mistake. Today is so much excitement going on here at the Senior Bowl. I'm going to get right to it. We're going to talk about players that I like, that I saw in both sessions. So we got the national roster and the American roster. The national roster played at practice this morning. Now, I got to admit, they have two different types of coaches. I ain't coming down on no coaches, but I am going to be transparent. The national coaches, it's more like an NFL practice. They playing music. Everybody's jumping all around. And then the American coaches, the one I saw the tail end of their practice yesterday, they're practicing in the afternoon. It's a little wine and cheeses for me. You know what I'm saying? It's a little laid back, especially after that morning practice. But I'll go back to front. I'll start with the American roster because I actually saw them 2 days. On the offensive line, there are a lot of really, really good players on both teams. Armand Membo from Missouri, I really like that kid. The thing about him is he would have never been a player that Trent Baalke took because he's like 6'3", 315, and he plays tackle. But when you watch him and the way that he moves, there are some people that believe because of his arm length, he could stay at that. He could stay there. I like him at left guard or right guard. I think he moves, and that's what he does. He's a people mover. He's a good player in the run game. Go and watch the tape. So that's a second-round type dude, right? That because of his measurables, he might drop a little bit. When the Jaguars pick in the second round, he is someone that will be, I think, they'll be in the neighborhood to be able to snag him. It depends on what they have done in free agency. I'll get to that in just a second at the top of segment 3 and talk about alternatives to going out there spending all that money on Trey Smith. Yeah, he's a very, very good player on the offensive line for the American roster. Now, for the national roster, I think they're more loaded on the offensive line. Josh Connolly is a real good player out of Oregon. Don't think he makes it out of the first round. He was lined up a lot at right tackle. He played left tackle at Oregon. I do not think he makes it out of the first round. I think those really, really good teams or some teams like the Rams or the 49ers, they didn't have a great year, but Seattle is a team you have to watch for guys like this because they all need help on their offensive line, and they're looking to find their version of Anton Harrison, a guy that you can take late in the first round. So I don't believe he gets out of the first round. Marcus Embo, I hope I'm saying his name right. It's MBO. He's a tackle out of Purdue. I have talked about him before I got here. He did not disappoint. I did post a video on social media on X. Has a basketball background in high school. Feet are crazy. Moves, bends, does it all. I think he's more of a right tackle than he is a left tackle. But that will create a situation where there's competition. Like, remember, Anton Harrison played most of his snaps in college at left tackle. It's a situation where somebody new is going to come in here and say, move him over there. So that's what I was talking about. Anton Harrison, you're going to compete with Walker Little for left tackle. There's your left tackle right there. That's it. You're going to compete with him for left tackle. You got a guy who's making pretty good money in Walker Little in the first year of an extension. And now you got a rookie, the rookie contract guy I told you about. You can't give him any more money right now if you wanted to. It ain't none of his business. The fact that they paid Walker Little, beat him out. This is what we have to do. We have to start with competition. So if you can find a right tackle or you get a right tackle at the top of the second round that you believe you can win with. And Anthony Belton is another one who looks like a Philadelphia Eagle. Dude's like 6'6", like 330 pounds. He looks like a Philadelphia Eagle. He's another one of those dudes that if he's there in the third round and you go, he can start for us at right tackle. Now, in my opinion, you push Anton over to left tackle and you say that's your natural position. You guys go ahead and fight that out. You and Walker Little. I think that's how you're able to help your team, and that's how you're able to lift the floor of your team. So I like him an awful lot. Jalen Rivers, hometown kid. I would say Duval, but he's from Clay County. He's from Oak Leaf, but he played at the University of Miami. I know his family, and when I start mentioning his dad and his uncle today, got people that I knew before he was born. Right, they were clients of mine, and I cut their hair. And he was like, "Man, I got to tell him." He made sure he told him, and it turns out that they're both also related to my brother-in-law, who after I lost touch with them. I married Kim. Everybody knows my wife, Kimmy. Shout out to Kimmy. Well, her brother-in-law, that's Jalen Rivers' dad's cousin. And it's amazing that we made that connection. But you guys are more concerned about what he can do for the Jaguars. And I'm telling you, he doesn't care where he plays. Big kid, 6'4 and a half, 6'5", 330. He did say he'll play anything, but he likes that guard spot. He played left tackle. I think that's a left guard candidate for the Jaguars. At the top of the second round, it depends how the draft goes. I'm looking at more or less the top of the third round or maybe the bottom end of the second round for Jalen Rivers. But if you really, really want him, I wouldn't play around with it too much. I'd just go ahead and get him. Wyatt Milliam worked out primarily where I saw him at right tackle. Looks like a pretty decent. I like his coach in college. Everybody knows that his coach was one of the dudes that I thought Florida State would look at West Virginia. But nice player, solid. I don't think he's going to be like an all-pro type guy, but he's someone that is projected anywhere from the middle of the first round to the middle of the second round. I wouldn't be mad if the Jaguars got him. I don't think he gives you the versatility that everybody else does. I will probably project him at a right tackle. Now, the man of the hour, who I also spoke with about that cold weather up in North Dakota, is my man, Gray Zabel. A lot of reports are saying that Gray Zabel from North Dakota State can play center. This is the Graham Barton of this draft. I haven't been able to make that a determination. Not saying that it can't happen, but for me personally, I'll trust the people that have made that, especially the dudes that have said it, that have a good track record. But I can't tell you this. I know he can play wherever you play him at on the interior of that line. The dude can absolutely get it. He is athletic. He's a real good player. And I do not believe he'll be there at the top of the second round. So that's one of those dudes that you'll see teams try to move up to the end of the first round, much like Barton. And then, when you move up to the end of the first round and you get that fifth-year option, right? And he's a dude that I believe will help you right away. One of my other favorite guys is Ozzie Trapino or Trapito. Let me say it again. Ozzie Trapillo or Trapillo or Trapillo, however you say it. I think it's one L, so it's probably Trapillo, but that's a man. Ozzie's like 6'8", probably goes 315, somewhere between 315 and 320. All man. And can move with it. And can pull, is a bully. He has Lane Johnson size. I'm not telling you he's Lane Johnson because Lane Johnson is the first ballot Hall of Famer to me. But it looks like it. It looks right. It looks right. And this is why I think spending all of that money on one player when you can use draft picks and get multiple people and in free agency, I just think that in the context of that, I would never say getting a player of Trey's caliber is a mistake. But I just think that there's probably a better way that you can move around and really, really help this team in more ways than one and get the objective that Liam Coen wants, and that is to fix the offensive line. That's just the way that I see it. At the top of this next segment, I'm going to tell you some other players that have absolutely blown my mind, that I believe are going to be folks that are going to fly off this board in the top 15. I'll do all of that and tell you about it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes used to be waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with the TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return. While you get real-time updates on their progress, you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything within 100% accuracy. All you can do is get the most money back guaranteed because of this professional approach. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. This is what it is. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live, full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day, talking about building the offensive line, how you go about doing it, and talking about some of these other players right now. This is the way to do it, right? This is my way. If you properly address this in free agency, those guys, there's a lot of guys out there, right? I talked to my man Clay Harbor, who covers the Bears, former Jaguar, by the way, yesterday, and I just flat out asked him about Teevin Jenkins. He says Tevin Jenkins is a great player, man. He's a dog. Your only problem is there's 17 games and he's going to be out there for about 10 of them. I don't know if I want to give somebody that money that you haven't seen him stay healthy. But he's a fool with it. I mean, he can go. He can flat out go. But he's going to cost you some money. I mean, you're talking about maybe $22 million a year for him. And that's still good. But I need you to be available a little bit more. And that's scary to me. And I know there's a possibility of Ian Cunningham being the GM and there's a connection. I'm just telling you that lack of durability concerns me a little bit. Brad Bredesen played last year. He made like $4 or $5 million, I think, for Tampa Bay. He came from the Giants. He played really well. Now he was in between two guys, Graham Barton and of course Tristan Wirfs. But sometimes when you're in between great players, you're not being hidden. You're given a chance to make sure you're not seen, right? Because those guys still have their own responsibilities. And he passed the test. Now, from what I'm hearing, he loves Tampa, really, really wants to stay there, wants to finally settle down. He had the best season of his career. Would money be tempting him to leave? I don't know what Tampa's salary cap situation is, but you may be having an uphill battle there unless Liam Coen has a great relationship with him and Liam Coen is able to get maybe the offensive line coach from Tampa to come here. Now, instead of associating that best year of his career with the team, he'll associate it with the people, and you could get you a left guard, and you don't have to pay a world of money for him. You're talking about $7-8 million a year over a 3 or 4 year deal, right? Mekhi Becton on the other side still struggles a little bit in pass pro, according to the Philadelphia people. All 6'7", 360 pounds of him. Now, remember, I said, Anton Harrison, I will let you go over here. Now, this is coming from me. This is not coming from the staff. So I don't know if they're thinking about this. I'm going to let you go compete at your natural position on the left side with Walker Little. And if I can tell Becton, look, I'll give you a chance to play right tackle. At worst, you're going to play right guard. And if that's the case, now, even if Walker Little is able to maintain, you still got Anton Harrison, you got Becton, you can do something at center in the draft, and now you got Bredesen at left guard. You got a different offensive line, guys who run block better than the guys who you have now. And that's critical. And both of those guys' strength is run blocking, and they won't cost you a whole bunch. With the money you have left over, instead of paying all that money to Trey again, now What if they hired a defensive back coach from the Minnesota Vikings? Harrison Smith is 36, so Minnesota might say, okay, we want to keep Cam Bynum. Okay, you keep Cam Bynum, you might not be able to keep Byron Murphy. Now you get your outside corner who has position versatility, who's not going to command a Tyson Campbell type deal. You get the production you need, you get the professionalism you need, you get the scheme consistency that you need, and now you have your two corners and Jarian Jones sitting there in the slot, and anything that you add in the draft is plus. It's a surplus, and it's depth, but it's depth that could actually play and be on the field, especially in dime situations when you're doing all these packages on third down, because we are going to assume that the new staff is able to get people to third down and long down and distance. We're going to assume they're going to be better offensively so they can have a better way to dictate the game defensively and impact the game like that by getting out and scoring the ball quicker than they have in the past. So that's where I'm at with that. Now, if I look at defense, stars of the day, I told y'all about Mike Green before I got here. There was concern about Mike Green, and I was talking to my boy Big Game James from Sports Day Media about Mike Green. I said, watch him. The concern about him was his strength and his length, right? He's 6'3", 250-ish. He's got tree trunk legs. I never worry about guys whose legs are that big because they can always use that as their base and get power and transfer speed to power and be able to play through a lot of contact. I'm going to tell you something. He ain't going to be there in round 2. The only way the Jaguars end up with him is they move down and they move somewhere between 15 and 20 and they snatch him because he is going to be a ball player. The last place you want to see him is somewhere like Philadelphia. The last place you want to see him is somewhere like San Francisco on the other side of Bosa. The last place you want to see him is Baltimore. And so that's why I'm telling you, this kid is going to be a fantastic player. The star of the day, though, is Shemar Stewart from Texas A&M. Listen to me. I have been on this train like, man, they can't keep throwing stuff at the end. They can't keep throwing stuff at the edge position. I know I said it. I know because people were getting on me about Abdul Carter, right? So imagine a guy that's 6'6", 285 pounds, and he has some of the same characteristics as Trayvon Walker, but he's twitchy. He's more twitchy. Probably is more of an explosive pass rusher. And where Trayvon is more of an edge setter and where Trayvon is more of a violent guy, where you can see his impact on the people he's playing against, they're like, dude, I'm sick of this guy. Even running backs, Trayvon be hitting everybody hard, right? While he doesn't have that much, he still has it. He just doesn't have that much of it like Trayvon. And while Trayvon's straight line speed might be quicker, I think his Stewart's explosiveness and suddenness is a little bit higher than Trayvon's. And that's because I think he's played out there the entire time. He has speed and power, but he probably wins with more speed than Trayvon, where Trayvon kind of bends towards the power aspect of it and the fact that he has a motor and he never stops going. That's why he gets a lot of secondary sacks and he chases people because the play is never over with him, right? Stewart has some of those same attributes. If they run an odd front, I can see them taking him. Because if they run an odd front, they can leave Trayvon at outside linebacker and they can put Stewart. Stewart's like 10 pounds bigger. They can put him down. They can put him in a 5 technique or a 4I or 4B, and he can be the down lineman y'all want Trayvon to be so bad, right? Good football player, man. Good football player. All right, some other guys that I like, Joshua Farmer from Florida State. Of course, Azareye'h Thomas, I talked to him. Very, very grounded kid, lengthy. You'll hear some of the same things about him that you heard about Tyson Campbell. Good size, good speed. You want to see him make a few more plays here and there. I think Azareye'h can definitely get that done. A lengthy one-on-one corner that when you play him against guys, when you play him against certain twitchy type, like if you played him against Brian Thomas Jr., you wouldn't sit here and trip about him having a athletic disadvantage. You wouldn't. He's going to be right there with anybody. As far as a run jump athlete, lengthy, long, he can get that done, man. I also don't think he's getting out of the first round. So it might be a moot point talking about that. I think Joshua Farmer is a dude right at the top of the second round. You can see him. He's a Jalen Carter light. There is no Jalen Carter in this draft. But when you talk about a kid that can play that way, he's about the same size. That's exactly what you're going to get with him. There's a kid named Oluwafemini Oladejo who played at UCLA. Good ball player who can come off the edge. So folks looking for a third edge rusher, there are some guys out there, and you're looking for the twitchy pass rusher. You're not necessarily looking for the 4B guy. Also, Damian Martinez at running back. Listen to me, man. Contact balance. He's going to be a good running back who can play in tandem with someone who has breakaway speed. And he's going to be the type dude you want this team giving the ball to in the fourth quarter. He's going to grind on people and lean on folks. And he has some of the best feet in this draft. And he's about 240 pounds. And finally, two receivers that I really, really like that I saw, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both from Iowa State. Now, Florida State fans understand why Mike tried to get the Iowa State wide receivers coach to come to FSU. Really, 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 really good ball player. So more to see from here over the next 2 days as it pertains to how you can take them and put them in the Jacksonville Jaguars system. I hope y'all like my explanation for how you build a team. Just give me some ideas to do it more than one way. It ain't Trey Smith or bust, because if that doesn't happen, then you'll be sitting there going, oh, man, it was gloom or doom, man, agony, agony, agony. So you got to think of more ways to try to figure this out. And then keep this in mind. Most of the really good teams, they're good players, they got drafted. They didn't get, like, the Chiefs gave $80 million to Jawan Taylor. He ain't nowhere near. He's probably their fourth best lineman on their team. And they could do that because Creed Humphrey was drafted. Trey Smith was drafted. Drafting your own players is very, very important for this team and for any organization that's going to win to be able to compete long term. You have to get production out of the draft. You have to have dudes and get to the point where you got to make choices whether you can afford to re-sign them. And if you don't, like the Chiefs, sometimes they don't re-sign their own guys. And the reason why is because, well, if I did it once, I can do it again. And they always have guys in development. I recall when people were saying that Jason Kelce, when he retired, the Eagles were going to take a step back. You know, Cam Jurgens stepped right in and made the Pro Bowl. You see, that's development. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what good teams do. L'Jarius Sneed, big-time player for the Chiefs, won a couple of Super Bowls, let him go in free. Well, they traded him. Instead of letting him go in free agency, got a third-round pick. Replaced him with another dude. I mean, that's what good teams do. But you have to first start with drafting them. And a lot of folks are skeptical of whether or not the Jaguars can do that. My thing, and the only thing I'll tell you is this is a new start. They're going to have a new GM, a new coach, a new philosophy. Everything's all new. And this is why the skepticism, you wanted Trent gone. Now, send that skepticism with you and wish for the best. And at least give these guys the benefit of the doubt and a chance to get this the right way. But the right way is always through the draft. It's super, super important. You can let go of that hurt that you don't have confidence in the draft anymore, and at least give these guys some grace and give them confidence until they give you a reason not to. I'm Tony Wiggins. We're Locked On Jaguars. I'll be at the Senior Bowl all week. Sounds like I'm doing a comedy show, but I'm not. But you guys take care. I'll give you more information as time permits. Take care. Thanks for joining Locked On Jaguars. We'll see you.